My grandmother left me an inheritance and now I am an enemy to the family. My mom doesn't talk to me anymore. It's not my fault, but I have to get over it. My name is Ava Quinn, I'm 29, and I work as a paralegal in a glass tower law firm in downtown Chicago. But that morning, I was just a granddaughter sitting in the front pew at a funeral, my hands trembling as they gripped the cold wood. When the lawyer opened the envelope, I swear I could hear my mother's heart shatter across the room. She left it all to Ava, he said, like it was nothing. The lake house, the land, the antique jewelry, the retirement accounts. Even the ridiculous emerald ring my grandma wore every Christmas, which everyone assumed would go to my Aunt Charlotte, the family favorite. But no. All of it, to me. The silence in the room wasn't just heavy. It was violent. My mother's mouth fell open but no words came out. My brother Jonah laughed once, sharp, bitter, then stood up and walked out. Aunt Charlotte stared at me like I'd pulled a knife from my purse and stabbed her. I couldn't breathe. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't even know it was coming. I sat there stunned, the envelope trembling in my lap, and all I could hear was my grandma's voice from 3 weeks ago, whispering as I tucked her in after her chemo treatment. Don't let them bully you, Ava. You see people's truth when there's something to take. Now I knew what she meant. And I was about to find out how ugly the truth really was. The funeral reception was held at my mother's house, but when I walked through the door it felt like I'd entered enemy territory. Every head in the room turned toward me. Conversations dipped into a tense murmur. Glasses clinked too hard against counters. Plates were abandoned mid-bite. I lingered near the doorway, feeling the heat of their stares on my back. My black dress suddenly itched at my skin. Well, look who's here, and Charlotte said under her breath, her wine glass dangling between 2 fingers. She didn't bother hiding the venom in her voice. I tried to smile. Tried to pretend like I hadn't just been condemned without a trial. Hey, I said, but it came out small, shaky. I cleared my throat. I just wanted to pay my respects with everyone. Grandma would have wanted that. My cousin Leah, who used to braid my hair at family barbecues, brushed past me without a glance. Jonah, standing at the far end of the kitchen, locked eyes with me, narrowed his gaze into a look that screamed betrayal. Mom didn't even approach me. She sat stiffly at the dining table, surrounded by a ring of loyal faces, her mouth pressed into a thin, bloodless line. I caught little whispers leaking out from corners of the room. She must have manipulated her. Probably helped her with the paperwork while Grandma was sick, you know? It's disgusting. Taking advantage of an old woman like that. My stomach twisted. I wanted to scream, I didn't even know. I wanted to shake them, demand they remember the little girl who cried when her goldfish died, the teenager who made scrapbooks for everyone at Christmas. Instead, I stood there, invisible and despised, while the people who were supposed to love me turned me into a villain. In the kitchen, Grandma's old china was laid out for coffee service. I recognized the little blue and white teacups, the ones she used to let me sip out of when I was 5. I reached out and traced one with my fingertip. It felt like touching a ghost. That was when Mom finally spoke. Loud enough for the whole room to hear, she said. I hope you're happy, Ava. You got what you wanted. Her voice cut through the buzz like a whip. My heart broke open in my chest. I opened my mouth to reply, but what was there to say? That I didn't want any of it? That I would have given every dollar back just to have one more Christmas morning with Grandma sitting by the fire, humming carols off-key? Tears burned behind my eyes, but I forced them back. Crying would only make them think I was guilty. I turned and stumbled outside, into the freezing March air. The sky was the color of dirty cotton. A crow cawed somewhere overhead. I stood there on the porch, arms wrapped around myself, the cold gnawing at my skin. I could still see them inside through the window, laughing now, talking again like I had never existed at all. A part of me wanted to run back in, slam my fist on the table, and scream that I had loved Grandma more than any of them combined. That they were the ones who only showed up on holidays, who forgot her birthday, who left her lonely in that too-big house with a dying body and a fading mind. But another part, the part that still remembered how it felt when Mom brushed my hair and kissed my forehead, just stood there, paralyzed with heartbreak. I wasn't just mourning my grandmother. I was mourning my whole family. Because I could see it now crystal clear, the girl who had once been Ava Quinn, daughter, sister, cousin, was already dead to them. And the woman they thought I had become, the liar, the thief, the betrayer, was the only one they would ever see again. Inside, someone shut the curtain, blocking me from view. I was officially on the outside now. Alone. Frozen. Unwanted. The wind picked up, cutting through the thin fabric of my dress. I shivered, clutching my elbows, staring into the blank gray sky. Somewhere deep inside, a tiny ember of anger flickered to life, but it was weak, barely a spark. For now all I had was grief. And a growing terrifying certainty. I hadn't just lost my grandmother today. I had lost everything. I didn't go back to the office for a week after the funeral. I couldn't. I was afraid I'd start sobbing in front of the printer or scream at a client for asking where the break room was. Instead, I stayed in my apartment, curtains drawn, phone on silent, barely moving except to make tea I never drank. On the 5th day, I got an email from the estate lawyer. Subject: finalize will details, disbursement instructions attached. The document was attached like a ticking bomb. I clicked it. Watch the spinning wheel load. There it was. My name. Repeated again and again. The lake house, the bank accounts, the jewelry, even Grandma's old Buick LeSabre parked in the driveway like a fossil from another life. It was mine now. And at the bottom: as per the deceased's wishes, no other parties shall receive inheritance. Handwritten letter enclosed. My hand trembled as I opened the scan. Her writing was uneven, thin, as if each word cost her effort. My Ava, you were the only one who sat with me, who read to me, who washed my hair when I couldn't lift my arms. You saw me even when I wasn't pretty or proud. I leave you everything not because of what you did, but who you are. Trust yourself. They will say terrible things. But I saw your heart. Love you forever. Grandma Rose. I broke. Just crumpled onto the floor, tears streaking hot down my cheeks as I curled around my knees. The letter fell from my fingers like a prayer I couldn't hold onto. She knew. She knew what they'd do. And she still did it. But even her words couldn't prepare me for what came next. It started small, Leah blocking me on Instagram. Then a few of Mom's friends unfriended me on Facebook. I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't care what people thought. But that wasn't true. I did care. Then came the texts. Jonah. You're disgusting. You knew she was dying and you took advantage. You make me sick. And Charlotte. Hope the lake house keeps you warm when you're rotting in hell. Even Mom. Don't ever contact me again. You are not my daughter. Each message was a blade. I reread them until the words seared themselves into my skull. Until I started to believe them. What if I had done something wrong? I thought about that night 3 months ago when Grandma had asked me to bring her the folder from her bedroom, the one in the nightstand with all her legal documents. She'd looked so small in that recliner, her body swallowed in blankets, face pale and papery. Take this to the lawyer on Monday, she'd said. Don't tell anyone. I want it handled quietly. I hadn't read it. I'd just delivered it like she asked. That's all. I was just doing what she told me. Right? But now, lying awake at 3 a.m., I questioned everything. What if that was the moment she changed her will? What if I had done something selfish without even realizing it? What if all their hatred was justified? I stopped answering my phone altogether. Let my job slide into voicemail. I stared at the TV, not watching anything, just letting the noise keep me from hearing my own thoughts. And then, the letter came. A thick white envelope, no return address. Inside, a single photograph. Me at 16, standing next to Grandma on the front porch of the lake house. She was kissing my temple. I was laughing. My arm wrapped around her waist. On the back, written in red ink. She was never yours. She loved all of us. No signature. I stared at the photo so long my eyes blurred. My heart pounded in my chest like it was trying to escape. Who sent this? Why now? I checked the locks on my door 3 times that night. Pulled the curtains tight. Slept with the light on. Because suddenly it didn't feel like I was just hated. It felt like someone out there wanted me to suffer. And the worst part? I was starting to believe I deserved it. The breaking point came 2 days later when I found Mom waiting outside my apartment. I spotted her through the peephole first, standing stiffly in her trench coat, arms folded tight against the cold. For a long minute I just stood there, my forehead pressed against the door, heart hammering against my ribs. She rang the bell again. I opened the door an inch. What do you want? Her mouth twisted, as if even hearing my voice was offensive. We need to talk. I almost said no. Almost slammed the door. But some desperate, broken part of me, some daughter-shaped scar still clinging to hope, stepped aside and let her in. She brushed past me, heels clicking sharply on the worn wood floors, her perfume trailing behind her, sharp and sour, nothing like the lilac smell of my childhood memories. I closed the door. Turned. Waited. She didn't waste time. You manipulated her, she said, voice low and venomous. You preyed on an old, sick woman who didn't know what she was doing. That's not true. My voice cracked. Her eyes glinted, merciless. Isn't it? You were there every day, weren't you? Whispering in her ear, playing the sweet little caretaker while the rest of us were trying to live our lives. She asked me to be there, I said, heat flushing my cheeks. Where were you, Mom? You visited once a month. Sometimes less. Her hand twitched like she wanted to slap me. But she didn't. Instead, she smiled cold and joyless. She always favored you, she hissed. Even when you were little. You could do no wrong. You were the golden girl. I stared at her, stunned. Is that what this is about? You're mad because she loved me. Her laugh was hollow, ugly. Loved you enough to give you everything. She stepped closer, and for the first time in my life, I realized how much she hated me. Not just now, maybe for years. You can keep the lake house. The money. Or the damn ring if you want, she sneered. But know this, you are dead to us. You'll never be welcome at another Thanksgiving, another wedding, another anything. You've made sure of that. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of her. I never wanted to lose you, I whispered. She stepped back, cold satisfaction etched into every line of her face. You made your choice the moment you cashed in that will. I opened my mouth to argue, but she was already turning away, pulling the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. She paused just once, hand on the frame, without looking back. Her final words sliced me clean open. She would be ashamed of what you've become. Then she was gone. The door swung shut behind her, leaving nothing but silence and the soft, choking sound of my own breathing. I slid down the wall, pressing my forehead against my knees, shaking so hard my teeth rattled. Ashamed. That word echoed through me, a curse, a scar. Had Grandma really seen something good in me? Or had I just been the convenient one, the easy option, the lonely granddaughter desperate enough to sit by her side while everyone else lived their lives? I dug the handwritten letter out from under a pile of unopened mail, clutching it like a lifeline. Read it again, eyes devouring every shaky word. Trust yourself. I saw your heart. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But self-doubt had already wormed its way inside me, whispering, hollowing me out. That night, I drove to the lake house. The roads were slick with rain, streetlights smearing across my windshield like tears. By the time I pulled into the gravel drive, the house loomed ahead of me like a forgotten shipwreck. Dark windows. Sagging porch. Peeling white paint. I killed the engine and sat there, hands clenched tight around the steering wheel. This was mine now. All of it. The land, the house, the memories soaked into the wood and earth. Every Christmas morning. Every summer afternoon. Every birthday candle blown out on the cracked kitchen table. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to run inside or burn the whole place down. When I finally forced myself to move, I found the spare key tucked under the old rusted frog statue by the porch steps. Just like always. The door creaked open. The house smelled of dust and something deeper, something sad. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost. My footsteps thudded against the hollow floors. Grandma's quilt still lay folded at the end of the couch. Her glasses sat on the side table, smudged and forgotten. In the kitchen, the calendar on the wall was still turned to December. A little note scribbled in the margins, Ava's coming, with a shaky heart drawn beside it. That broke me. I collapsed against the counter, sobbing into my sleeves, wishing I could rewind everything, crawl back into the time before all this rot set in. Before death and money and resentment turned my family into strangers. But there was no going back. There was only this house. This loneliness. This terrible, beautiful inheritance. And the sickening feeling that the worst was still ahead. Because as I turned to leave, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A figure standing in the trees by the driveway. Watching me. And whoever it was, they weren't here to welcome me home. I froze, breath hitching in my throat. For a second, I thought maybe I'd imagined it. That it was just a tree branch shifting, a trick of the night. But no. There it was again. A figure. Standing just beyond the edge of the driveway, half swallowed by the woods, unmoving. My skin prickled with cold fear. Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door, to lock every window, to hide. Instead, I did something reckless. I stepped outside onto the porch. The wood groaned under my weight. Rain tapped against the eaves, soft and relentless. I squinted into the dark, heart hammering so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. Hello. I called out, my voice thin and shaking. Who's there? No answer. Just the sigh of the wind through the trees. I stood there staring until my eyes burned, and slowly, like smoke fading, the figure disappeared back into the woods. Gone. I backed inside, bolted the door, locked every window, then sat with my back against the doorframe, shaking. Someone was watching me. Someone wanted me to know I wasn't alone out here. But who? My family? Had it gone that far? I thought about the pictures sent to my apartment. The messages. The rage in Mom's face. I wrapped my arms around my knees, pressing my forehead against them, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. I used to think family was an unbreakable thing. Now it felt like a loaded gun pointed straight at my chest. The hours crawled by. I couldn't sleep. I wandered the house, flipping lights on, checking and rechecking the locks. At some point, I ended up in Grandma's bedroom. It smelled like lavender and old books. The quilt was still pulled neatly over the bed. Her slippers were tucked underneath, perfectly aligned. I sat down on the edge of the mattress, staring at the ghost of the life we'd had here, the simple evenings playing Scrabble, the way she'd sneak me hot cocoa even in July. You see people's truth when there's something to take. I heard her voice again, clear as day. I thought about Jonah smashing beer bottles at 4th of July because he didn't want to help clean up. I thought about Aunt Charlotte, laughing coldly when Grandma forgot her own birthday 2 years ago. I thought about Mom, always looking for reasons to leave, always sighing as she checked her watch. Had I really been so blind? Were they angry now because they loved her, or because they lost the chance to take what they thought was owed? I pulled my knees to my chest and let the silence settle heavy around me. Outside, the storm raged harder. Thunder rolled across the lake like a living thing. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the black stretch of water. For a moment, I imagined I saw faces in the glass of the window, twisted, furious, staring back at me. I closed the curtains and turned away. There was no one left to call. No one who would believe me. No one who would come. The family I thought I had, the safety net I thought would always catch me, was gone. All I had now were the splintered pieces of everything I'd lost. And the cold, unshakable feeling that I was completely, terrifyingly alone. By the next morning, something inside me had changed. It was small at first, a tiny, bitter coal burning low in my gut, but it grew as the hours passed, fed by every memory, every betrayal, every cruel word thrown at me like stones. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry. Not just at them for abandoning me, for demonizing me, for twisting my love for Grandma into something ugly, but at myself. For believing, even for a second, that I deserved their hate. For shrinking. For hiding. I stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window into the gray morning light. The lake rippled in the distance, a sheet of cold steel. The woods stood silent and indifferent. I thought about the figure I'd seen in the trees. The letter. The whispers. The way Mom's face had twisted with satisfaction when she told me I was dead to them. Enough. Enough. I grabbed my keys, shrugged on my jacket, and slammed out the door. I didn't even think about it. I just drove. Back toward the city. Toward the house where it had all started. Toward them. The sky was heavy and low, threatening rain again. Traffic blurred past me, the world a smear of grays and reds and honking horns. But all I could hear was the roar of my own blood. When I pulled up outside my mother's house, I didn't hesitate. I marched up the driveway, boots crunching over gravel, and hammered my fist against the door. It opened almost immediately. Jonah stood there, half-dressed, a beer in his hand even though it wasn't even noon. His face, when he saw me, twisted into a mask of contempt. "What the hell are you doing here?" he slurred. I pushed past him into the hallway, the air inside stale with cigarettes and something sour. "Where's she?" I demanded. "Who?" "Mom." He snorted, taking a lazy swig. "Not here. And even if she was, you're not welcome." I turned on him, fists clenching at my sides. "You think I wanted this?" I shouted, the words ripping out of me raw. "You think I planned for Grandma to die so I could inherit a damn crumbling house and some dusty jewelry?" He flinched, just a little, but then the sneer returned. "You always were the favorite," he said. "Don't act innocent. She gave you everything. She gave you us and you threw it away." "I didn't throw anything away." I screamed. "You did. You all did the second you decided it was easier to hate me than to face the truth about yourselves." The silence after was electric, vibrating with fury. Jonah stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "You're nothing, Ava," he said, voice low and poisonous. "Without that money, without that house, you're nothing." I smiled then. A terrible, broken smile. Because I finally saw it clearly. It had never been about love. It had always been about ownership. Possession. Control. And now that I had something they wanted, now that I didn't need them, they couldn't stand the sight of me. "Well," I said, my voice shaking with rage and something dangerously close to joy, "guess what, Jonah? I'm still here. And you," I jabbed a finger at his chest, "you're the one left with nothing." I turned on my heel and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I didn't cry this time. I didn't beg. I didn't look back. I climbed into my car, heart pounding, blood singing in my ears, and I drove away, the house shrinking in my rearview mirror until it disappeared completely. Let them rot in their bitterness. Let them stew in their anger. I had my grandmother's house. I had her faith in me written in trembling ink. And for the first time in weeks I had something else too. Fight. They had pushed me into a corner. They thought I would fold. They forgot I was Grandma Rose's girl. And I knew how to survive. I spent the next week at the lake house, breathing it back to life. I scrubbed every window until the sunlight poured in without hesitation. I mended the old porch swing, sanding down the splintered wood and repainting it Grandma's favorite soft yellow. I emptied the dusty closets and donated everything that didn't feel like love. It was backbreaking work. Lonely work. But it was mine. At night, I sat on the swing wrapped in a heavy blanket, cradling a mug of hot tea against my chest, watching the stars prick through the black sky one by one. The silence was no longer heavy. It was clean. Sacred. Slowly, I let the rage drain out of me. I thought about what it meant to be chosen, not out of pity or obligation, but out of pure, stubborn love. Grandma hadn't left me this because I was the smartest or the best. She'd left it because I had seen her. Stayed when no one else did. Held her hand when it was shaking too hard to lift a glass. Laughed with her even when she forgot the punchline. It wasn't about houses or money. It never had been. It was about faith. It was about trust. The kind of inheritance no one could steal. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped wondering if maybe someday they'd call to apologize. Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't. Either way, I was done waiting. One afternoon, as I was patching a crack in the living room wall, I found something tucked deep behind a loose panel, an old photo album, leather-worn soft from decades of hands flipping through it. I sat cross-legged on the floor and opened it. There we were. Me as a toddler covered in flour at Grandma's side in the kitchen. Me at 10, arms thrown around her neck, birthday candles lighting up both our faces. Me at 16, painting the picket fence with her, laughing so hard I'd fallen backwards into the flower bed. And then tucked between the pages a small handwritten note on yellowing stationery. You are my sunshine, Ava. Don't let them take your light. I pressed the paper to my heart, blinking back tears. They couldn't take it. They had tried. They had failed. I was still here. I was still me. The lake lapped gently at the shore beyond the porch. Birds called lazily in the trees. The swing creaked in the soft wind. I wasn't rich in the way they had imagined. But I was rich in all the ways that mattered. Every nail I hammered into place, every room I painted back to life, every night I sat watching the stars bloom overhead, I was stitching myself back together. Stronger. Wiser. Softer too. I wasn't alone. I had her love tucked deep in my bones, where no letter, no scream, no accusation could ever reach. And someday, if the right people found me, people who saw me the way Grandma had, maybe I'd have a new kind of family. A family built, not inherited. A family chosen. Until then I had the swing. The stars. The warm pulse of life slowly returning to a house that had almost been lost. And the steady, unshakable knowledge that I had survived the fire. And come out shining.